Hello, I am Catherine Kirby. Welcome to Creative View Podcast. This is January 24th, so it's 2024. Somebody that came into the yarn shop today said that they got a letter saying limitations on their insurance since it is now January 2024. And she called and said, well, this is an error. They said, what are you talking about? She says, well, it says 2024. And the guy said, it is 2024. I remember when I was a child and we were we were in grade school. And if any of you are older, you remember the weekly reader. You got it. It was, 2 pages, double-sided. And I remember it said in the year 2000, we would be living like the Jetsons in these big houses on poles with all these robots and things. And here it is, 2024. But there are many signs of the times in the skies. And we're actually in the book of Matthew and Luke, where it says there will be earthquakes in many places and signs in the skies and pestilence and famine. So I'm here to do knitting and crocheting and then some Bible. And I invite all of you, whether you're Christian or not, if you don't want to watch the end, you can click off, but I would invite you because the word is living and it changes you. So this is my Felix Pullover. It has a lacy edging on both. I would have been finished. In fact, I'm almost finished. It has what's called a tubular cast on, which gives your stitches kind of this floating effect, like they don't rest down on you. It's a little bit of work, but it's doable. You just have to hang in there. Whoever thought of it was brilliant. And then you do the tubular sewn bind off, which is very similar to the Kitchener stitch. And that also makes for a very nice edging. So were you ever knitting or crocheting in a certain pattern, but then the next row was different, but you took a break, you came back and you continued in the old pattern? Well, I did the cuff and then I started this next sleeve and I was working in knit one, purl one ribbing, just going down the sleeve. And I kept thinking in my mind, something's not right. But I just kept plowing along. And finally I said, I'm going to have to take all this out. And that's why I'm not quite finished. I started a second one at the shop in like a muted green color for another gift. So once you get done with the short rows, and if you've never done short rows, I really like the German short rows where you just pull the stitch up and it turns into 2. I think so much easier. And if you ever need a video, Very Pink Knits is good, but I think Pearl Soho has a good one. At Valentine's Day, I like to crochet these little hearts. They're quick. You can do them with cotton or any yarn you have, and they're nice for gifts or just as a sachet in your drawer. I think people still do sachets. I have this big pot of lavender in the backyard and it weathers the winter and every year it comes back. And until this past year, I never even watered it in the summer until we got a drought this summer. And then I thought, oh, this needs watered. So I hope everybody's having a good week. We got snow and then we got more snow. And my husband and I shoveled. And with my fibromyalgia, that's not always the best thing. And then we have the big sidewalk and the whole back. And I noticed one of the neighbors didn't shovel at all. And today I looked over there and it's all melting. This is called Just a Cute Little Scarf. You might hear doggies in the background. Just a cute little scarf. I made it this length. Now, when you go to attach it, I did a slip stitch. I just crocheted a slip stitch. And it looks pretty good on both sides. Here's the reverse side. But if you want to do a Mobius, then you, instead of just sewing it like this, you sew the wrong ends together. This paper isn't big enough to twist, but that's how you would do it. This is Euro Yarns Maple DK. It's polyester yarn. It's thinly plied. It's easy to work with. And it feels nice. I like it. I could have made it longer. Could have made it longer so that I could have double wrapped it, but I really didn't want it for that, for warmth. I just wanted it for show. And this is, the designer is Kathy Latchy. I'll write it down. I've done several of her patterns. Her patterns are really nice. So what are you all making? Why don't you put it in the comments? I pulled my hair back and flipped it under. We were playing a word game one night. It's called Spell Bee. You have to use the middle. It's like a little beehive. You have to use the middle letter. And I came up with the word chignon. My husband's like, what is that? I never heard of that. I'm like, well, it's a woman's hairstyle. And he's like, I never heard of that. So I went on the website to get the correct French pronunciation, and we were just belly laughing. I wasn't even saying it right with the French accent, but he said, I'm going to go out for breakfast. I'm going to ask the guys if they ever heard of a chignon. I never heard of that. So I've been working on the Addi knitting machine, and you end up with a big tube, and then you fold the hat inside. So this is Ella Rae Cozy Soft. It's a chunky yarn. It's an acrylic with some washable wool. And this color, I think it's kiwi. It's brighter. It's more neon looking almost than what you're seeing. So I put that in the middle. Now, if this were a child's hat, you could roll that up, but that doesn't really look good. So the right side is going to be like this. And this hat got a little bigger, so it would be a slouch hat. But I said to my husband, I think these colors would be really good for a scarf. I wish you could see the neon of this color, because the way you're seeing it almost looks like a mint, but no, it's a neon. These colors look great together. And the yarn has a nice sheen. When you do stripes, whether it's blanket, it's advisable not to make them completely even. It's more interesting. So I did 12 rows, 8 rows, 12 rows, 8 rows. So that was one of the hats. I did a bunch. I gave a bunch away. This was also a Ella Rae Cozy Soft Chunky. And again, it's much brighter than what you're seeing. But I liked what the colors did. I liked they call that pooling, P-O-O-L-I-N-G. But oftentimes when you start a new ball, you lose the effect. And if you wanted to give it to a child, you just roll it up. You could also roll it up for an adult too. It's nice and stretchy. So I've been working on the machine. I also did a hat with a yarn called KFI Indulgence Brush Mohair, and all of the fuzz went in the middle. And you're not going to feel it against your skin, because when the hat, this is your hat, or you could keep going and make a scarf. when the hat folds in on itself, you're only going to have this part showing. So I don't know if I was crazy about that. And then I have this yarn called Katia Ingenue, I don't know, Moda. Nonstop Creativity. It is a worsted or Aran weight, it says, although it seems thin, 78% mohair, and then polyamide and a little virgin wool, self-striping. At first I thought this is going to be too thin for the machine, but no. So I made a hat. You can see it on Instagram or Facebook, and both sides are fuzzy. So it looks like more like a garter stitch because I did it on the wrong side, but I really wanted the fuzz. But then I didn't think the brim fit right because you know the ribbing. So I tacked it up a little bit, and let's see here. Yeah. And I love all the colors, and even on the wrong side, you see all the colors. It is really soft with the fuzzy side out. But then I worked on the machine, and I just kept going and going. It was the day that it was snowing and snowing and snowing, and it was so beautiful. And you look across the street, and the squirrels are playing, and our dogs were out playing in the snow. And so I just kept going. And I know not everybody has access to that much yarn. Now, it is double. The only thing I haven't decided yet is if I just want to sew it together or if I want to pucker it and put a pom-pom on each end. And I made it long enough. Oh, I was riding home in the car today. I felt like a princess. And it's big enough to double loop, almost like a cow scarf. Comes down a little bit lower. And I love it. When you get a yarn that's self-striping and you don't know, like if you make a sweater, you're gonna like it or you're not gonna like it. If you made a sweater, the stripes would be a lot thinner. Yeah, a lot thinner. So that's that. It turned out great. I was so happy I didn't mess it up. I got so like in the groove of turning the the crank that I started to lose stitches and I didn't know it. And that wasn't fun fixing that. I mean, it wasn't not doable, but it wasn't fun, so I need to be more careful. I also have some things at the shop, but they're not here. So this is a blanket. This is my new project for the month of December. Babe Soft Cotton Chunky. This is a cotton acrylic blend, and it's really nice. You can get it in a worsted, you can get it in a chunky. It has nice stitch definition. So in this book is a pattern for a blanket. And the edging, if you want the book, I sell the book. If you buy the yarn, you get the book free. So the edging is kept on little stitch holders to do last. And I like that because, let me put all these stitches on the same needle so you can see it. I like that because when you do a pattern and the edging is garter stitch is smaller than stockinette stitch. And that's why when you finish your blanket, it pulls up on the edges because the edges are shorter. So this is a 12 row repeat, and you could make it bigger. This is going to be 24 by 36. And the pattern is simple. If you can like purl knit, you can do this. Yarn over, and that's the pattern. It has these little blocks with little holes, and I'm anxious to see how the border works because I've never done that before, and that will definitely be finished. I am a new woman. I am committed to getting my projects done, and that's all it is to it. So on my Facebook page, I have been posting a lot of Christian stuff. So not my shop page, but my personal page, just go to Facebook and look up Catherine Kirby, Catherine with a C. And it is disappointing. Come here, baby. Show them yourself. You want to show them who you are? Come here. Come here. Jake, come here. This is my new boy. He's a Siberian Husky. It's been a rough week and a half because he hasn't been used to being around other dogs, and we have the 2 foster dogs, which you'll see on my Facebook page, my Catherine Kirby Facebook page. I post my yarny stuff on my Creative View page. So yesterday was my day off. Monday we were going to get company and we didn't, but I thawed out. We bought this. We went to this meat market where everything is fresh and delicious, and meat is expensive, let's face it. And I got this big eye. I was gonna just get a regular. My husband says, no, let's get the eye round because that's the most tender. And yeah, it was expensive. So I put it in the freezer. I thawed it out for Monday and then found out we weren't getting company. So Tuesday, all I was going to do is put it in on the stove and sear both ends. I don't know if you know what that means, but it means at high heat, you brown each side, and then you can put it in the oven or do your pot roast on the top of the stove or however you want to do it. But I got distracted and went down to the lower level to talk to my husband. And in my mind, I thought I had put it on simmer. Now, the 3 dogs were all up here and nobody barked. But when I came up here, the house was filled with smoke to the point you were coughing. And it took hours to clear that out. And I noticed a lot of my stuff smells like charred and smoke. And the garage smells that way. And well, I was able to save the roast, just cut off the bottom. So I just simmered it on the stove. Also telling you I started a carnivore diet, and it's helping my fibromyalgia by leaps and bounds. I'll tell you about that later in case any of you are interested. And when the roast was finished, I was cutting it into like circular parts. And this big boy here, I don't know if you can see him, he was outside and he wanted in. And we don't give the dogs people food because it causes fights. And we've had fights. It's been a rough transition with this guy. And I opened the door to let him in, and he ran right up, jumped on the counter, grabbed the roast, and ran off. And it really affected his gut too, because it was a lot of meat. So I don't know, maybe that roast wasn't supposed to happen. So there's a doctor, Dr. Ken Berry. He's a doctor after my own heart. And he talks about the carnivore diet, which is actually like the Atkins diet of years ago. But you only eat meat, eggs, butter, lard, things from the animal. And I've been in so much pain for years. And for about a year, I've had this hip and leg pain shooting the whole way down got to the point I couldn't put my socks on. I couldn't lift my leg up to get in the passenger side of the car. And, you know, you're thinking, well, aren't you a physician? Why don't you go see a doctor? It's because I knew what they would do, and I didn't feel like that was going to work. So I was just trusting God. So I started the carnivore diet. My face is always big and puffy. I'm always bloated. And that like went away. But by a full day, two full days, I said to my husband, look, I can pick my leg up. I can move it. I can do this. I can do that. It's incredible. And then last Saturday, which would have been day 4 or day 5, I messed up. I was at the yarn shop a long time, and I was hungry. And all that I had was a little bit of a snack bar. Now, I know they're high in sugar. And all I did was eat one bite. And as soon as that hit my gut, these monster spasms returned to my left thigh. And for 2 days, I was right back where I started. And I'm thinking, who would believe that sugar would do that to your body? And as long as I stick to this diet, I'm really doing good. I'm not bloated. I don't have heartburn. So I'm just putting that out there in case any of you are interested. A lot of people have lost a lot of weight on it, gotten rid of diabetes, high blood pressure, all that stuff. So Dr. Ken Berry, Berry. So I wanted to take a look at Matthew 21. I know I talked about Matthew as a person the last podcast. And when I went to bed that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what it would have been like to be Matthew. Now, he was an outcast. He was called a publican, even when the 12 disciples were listed, Matthew the publican. Well, the publicans were considered sinners. They weren't allowed in the temple. They were only allowed in the outer court. And that's where the Gentiles went to try to learn from the Jews about God. That's where once you call him, he just wants to be pet and loved for hours. And he learned from the foster dog, Duke, how to give hugs. And so now when you try to walk away from him, he wants to hug you. Can you just go away for a little bit, huh? Can you just go lay down for a little bit? He is a big boy. He's 9 years old. And we drove several hours to get him. And I'll tell you the story about him maybe the next time. So when Jesus, the first time cleansed the temple, now we're in Matthew 21, and this is 5 days before Jesus is crucified. And Jesus did not come as a judge, but in these last 5 days, he is judging hypocrisy. And he is really coming down hard on hypocrites, people that say they're religious, but they're not. And he also cleanses the outer courtyard where the Gentiles, that's the only place they could go to learn of God, and the outcasts, so the blind, the maimed, the lame, all of those. And because the Jewish people under the ex-high priest, Caiaphas, turned this into a market with prices so exorbitant, there was no room for the Gentiles and the unfit, the outcasts, the imperfects. And so he cleared all that out. And then the Bible tells you, as soon as he did that, then the blind and the lame and the maimed and all came to him, and he healed them, which that was the whole purpose of that court, was for people to learn of God. And Jesus just came right there. But this is 5 days before his death. Oh, back to Matthew. So I couldn't sleep thinking about what it would be like to be Matthew. Yeah, wealthy friends, but really a skunk, not accepted, by the Jewish people, probably spit upon, hissed at, all of that. So everybody knew about Jesus. We knew that. The Bible tells us everybody, through all Judea and everybody. Well, if you were Matthew and you were sitting there at your table being an extortioner and you saw Jesus coming, what would you think? What would you think? Maybe he's going to overturn your table, which was 3 years before the cleansing, but people knew about that. Maybe he was going to really let you have it, but instead, he looks at you and he chooses you to be his. And in that way, we're all Matthews. So what I wanted to show you tonight is Jesus goes to Jerusalem. It was dangerous to go to Jerusalem 5 days before his death. They wanted to kill him. He has the triumphal entry where they're waving the palm branches and singing Hosanna, which means save now. They thought Jesus, if he were the Messiah, he's going to set up an earthly kingdom, which was all wrong. The night before, Mary, Martha's sister, poured her perfume on his feet, which if you were wealthy enough to afford that, it was a small vial of very expensive perfume that you reserved for your own burial, and she poured that out on him. The triumphal entry, Jesus fulfilled over 300 prophecies, and the chances of doing that are like zillion. In Zechariah 9:9, it says, "Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, your king comes unto you. He is just and having salvation, lowly, and riding upon an ass, and upon a colt, the foal of an ass." So in the time of Judges, the judges rode upon asses and their sons upon ass colts. I think Jesus was representing both God and the Son here because of the way that reads. He didn't come on a horse like the big important people, but now he's going to judge hypocrisy. Also wanted to say that Hosanna was taken from Psalm 118, and on his way to the crucifixion, Jesus sang that, "Today is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." That's quite a testimony. So, 2 acts of judgment. First, he cursed the fig tree. Now, it says that, Jesus and his disciples, they went out, they were hungry, it was in the morning, and they were hungry. And he came to a fig tree, and he found leaves on it. So if you have leaves, you should have fruit. But there was no fruit on it. Now, the book of Luke also says that this tree was given special attention. And so Jesus cursed it and said, "Let no fruit grow henceforth forevermore." And the disciples saw it because the tree just withered away. Now, what was the point of all this? Jesus would never waste his powers just to dry up a tree. Well, the fig tree represents Israel. And Israel was all leaves. All the religious leaders with their big phylacteries, with all these Bible verses and their big hymns and praying long prayers out and wanting to be called Rabbi, oh great one. They had all the leaves, but no fruit. And I kind of got stuck on that and thought those 2 acts where he was judging hypocrisy. The first one is the temple court. Basically, the sanctuary was defiled. Well, when you're a child of God, if you have asked Jesus into your heart and he comes inside you to live, now the temple, your body is the temple of the living God. And it's very important not to defile it. not by bad music, not by bad movies, not by cursing, not by sinning. That's the first point. The second one is the time of judgment had come for them. The judge, Jesus Christ, was passing the sentence. There's a scripture where he looks over the city and he weeps. And that word weep is loud, grievous weeping that you could hear all over. And he told them that because they did not recognize the time of his visitation, they would be destroyed. And 40 years later, the Romans destroyed the city. The book of Daniel told the exact day that Jesus would make his triumphal entry into Jerusalem. So if they cared, the same people that didn't care to go to the birth of Jesus, didn't care to follow that, and yet I think they knew, because one time they basically called Jesus illegitimate. They said, we're legitimate, basically meaning you're not. But what I wanted to ask you is, are you all leaves? Because many people, by addition, say, oh, I'm a Christian, but they've never done the submission. You're either a happy servant to Christ or you're a slave to this world that is dying and the master of this world, which is Satan. And you can have all leaves, but then you should have fruit. And if you meet somebody and they say, yeah, I'm a Christian, but they're acting awful, you say to yourself, well, they can't be. They just can't be. So I met a man back in the summer, a salesman, and it was maybe not a religious book, but kind of hinting of spirituality. And he wanted to know if I wanted to place an ad. And I haven't stopped praying for this man. And I said, oh, are you a Christian? And he said, yes. And I said, can I ask how you came to Christ? And he said, well, I was born into it. And I said, well, not according to Jesus. And he listened to me. So in John 1:11, it talks about the people that reject Jesus. He came to his own, they received him not. But as many as received him, to them gave he the power to become sons of God, even to them who believe in his name, which were born not of blood. So you can't be born into it, nor of the will of the flesh. Oh, I'm a Christian. Nor by the will of man. Well, I want my son to be a Christian. No. How? But of God. And Jesus explained this to Nicodemus. So if you haven't received Jesus into your heart, don't put it off. You don't have to go to church. You don't have to be with anybody. I was in my living room years ago when I just said, God, I can't do it on my own. Please take over my life. And a lot of mainstream churches say, well, all you have to do is say this prayer, go home and write this down. No, it's submission. It's waking up, praising God and asking God, what is your will today? What can I do today to glorify you? And when it says believe in his name, that's not just saying I believe in God. Well, even the demons believe in God. So that is my message for today. I'll see you in a week or two. Let your light shine. Shine, baby, shine. And leave me some comments. I'd love to hear from you. Signing out.